move on, how these collective energies here for 2019 affect us on the different layers of our energetic perception in the different areas of our lives. This is part 2 of our 2019 forecast for empaths. Physically, we're going to have to like really go into more pragmatic, more practical, more physically aware, more physically integrated place. I've been talking about this for years, guys. Many people had a rude awakening in 2018. The physical is catching up, and with all these ascension symptoms on top of this, you're gonna have to go into conscious self-care and self-healing. All right, so once more here, what we ingest, what we allow in, what we surround ourselves with, and what we focus on, those are affecting our physical as well. Okay, so you got to eat well, you got to really know what's conducive for you, what isn't. If you already taking medication, try to get to eliminate medication. Some medication is good, or is needed for some people, but some is not, and it often creates this cascade, this domino, that you need other medications to deal with the side effects of the first medication. So, in times where there's unrest and social upheaval to be expected, you have to, and this is the backdrop of everything that I have been sharing with you here so far, you have to expect disruptions of supply chains. You have to expect the unexpected, guys. And if you are dependent on substances, if you are dependent on medications, well, there may be times where you don't have them. Okay, so you better learn how to deal with this without those substances, okay, and how you can use plant medicines, plant foods, oils, essences, alternative healing methods, self-healing, energetic self-healing, how to increase your wellness, okay? Work with sounds, work with oils, work with energy work. So more grounding, more focus on the essential, and, really sort of stop yourself from going into this powerlessness, like say you get diagnosed. This is a huge conspiracy theory, really, how doctors, label us with this diagnosis, and we're like, oh my God, I'm doomed. But all that does is really it caves in your energy and makes you feel powerless, and that then creates those physical symptoms. So remember, this is retrocausal, okay? Our temporal perception is changing, and also with it, the temporal manifestation of things. Emotionally, dealing with this fear and uncertainty, I've already said this, triggers our autonomous nervous system. It triggers the fight, flight, or freeze. It triggers all our ego coping, all our ego stuff, okay, massively. And especially, there's a lot of souls that are going to opt out next year, okay? So a lot of people will experience the loss of a loved one. Older people are all leaving now in drones, because it's going to get too uncomfortable. But then at the same time, also emotionally, a lot of people will feel lost. Okay, so there's this overall energy of having to deal with loss and grieve. That's something as a healer or as an empath, and you have to understand that a lot of people will, sort of maybe come to you and dump their stuff, and you're going to have to really know how to work your own energies to not absorb too much, how to go into, a sort of a good balance between wanting to be open and wanting to be compassionate and really wanting to be there for them, but also having very clear boundaries and not absorbing things. Okay. The addiction stuff that I said here earlier, is all about excessiveness. So people, it will just be so intense that they will feel like they have to go into this excessiveness. And the prime directive of the ego, right, is seeking pleasure or avoiding pain. So you can interpolate, what that does to a collective. Okay. Escapism, gaming, porn addiction, You know, obviously substance addiction, but also like spiritual stuff, like weirdo groups. I've said this before, and misuse of plant medicines, misuse of psychoactive hallucinogenic substances. Okay, so we're gonna have to like really learn how to be honest with ourselves, how to be more integrous due to our own virtues. Okay, and how to regulate all this, you know, how to learn how to self-manage, you know, and become more independent and not seeing ourselves in this powerless place of waiting for something to happen. Okay, so no more ignorance, guys, no more, you know, positionality. All that's just gonna pull you into this increased wave of radicalism and fanatism and excessiveness. Okay, so mentally, you know, the biggest issue is, and you can feel this right now as you're listening to me, there's going to be a lot of bad news, you know, and you're going to have to find a way to deal with news as an empath, because it's too bombarding. And if you haven't stopped doing this, then stop watching local news channels for one, and then, you know, be really conscientious and selective about some of the global news, the sources that you use there. Okay, you know, be honest with yourself. Really stand in that place of like, am I, you know, getting pulled into the drama of worldwide stuff right now? You know, that it's the integrity piece here. The reason why this is such a big subject, you know, next year is because a lot of this is fifth, fourth chakra related. You know, seeing truth and then, you know, also expressing truth. So we're going to have to learn how to deal with our thinkingness, with the way we understand, we contextualize things. We have to learn how to express this and communicate this. Now, this will actually, on a positive note, create a really beautiful creative tension. So we're going to see a lot of cool new movies, music, you know, visual arts, and also the inventiveness that I mentioned in technology coming forward. So it gives those of us who are not afraid, who can stand their ground, you know, and who can balance this wonderful opportunity, you know, to self-express and self-actualize. Anything is possible, guys. Anything is possible this next year. So it's really wonderful. We just need to have this discipline to stay within our boundaries and to work our heart chakra correctly, so that we're not just absorbing things. Also, things are going to be really like funny too, you know, a lot of humor, because you know, when things go bad in the world, right, then you know, bread and games, you're familiar with this, right, to keep the spirit up. The societies always bring forward like ways to release all this, and humor, comedy, and so forth is a wonderful tool for this. So expect quite a bit of new, you know, comedians or sort of humorous outlets to enter our media sphere, or you know, or you know, even like maybe on stage. So socially, you know, all this would then bring in, you know, we've talked about this in many different ways, so we were always just looking at it from a different camera perspective. You know, this congruence that is needed, you know, this true self-awareness, obviously comes with letting go of some of our false selves and these beliefs about ourselves and how we see ourselves and how we think other people see us. For you guys, I can boil this down to a simple thing that you may understand, and that is, it's going to be a white shadow year. And if you have still sort of unresolved white shadow in you, you know, trying to please, trying to conform, trying to look good in front of others, you're going to have to be careful. So really work on this. Okay, go into, you know, confrontation, go into speaking truth, speaking from the heart more. And instead of, you know, just like, oh, you and blaming and the victimhood, and so, to actively move into conflict resolution. You know, again, here on a positive note, you know, there's going to be this like really strong momentum and movement into communities, smaller communities. Like on a business level, the companies have already identified this, that marketing and all this has to happen through communities. And look at me, I mean, I've always been doing this, like really working with people and involving them and activating them to engaging them. A lot of us will come up with this idea, to do circles, these safe spaces that I mentioned earlier that you can start creating now, start manifesting now. So if you're interested in learning more about how to become a self healing circle facilitator, then email me. Okay, so we have a program, a vehicle for this, where you don't have to be an energy healer or anything. The only prerequisite is that you're actually in the sacred self healing program, so that you understand the resonances and so forth that we use for creating the safe space. So things are going to move more into even more into resource sharing. So just a few keywords here: Lyft, Uber, Airbnb. We're going to see more of this. I've said this before. Living space sharing is going to be a big one in the future. People seeking roommates. Something that we saw in the 80s in Europe, where there's 3 or 4 people coming together, and buying or renting a really beautiful home, or even just to on a smaller scale to get by, because they're shifting the income source and stuff like that. So sharing of resources, and this will actually happen on a collective level as well. We're going to see something new here. Countries stepping up for other countries, and it would be cool to watch. Some of it has an agenda, though. Everything is moving more towards smaller, independent, self-sufficient communities. So the urban farming comes in here, and local farming and all this, the farmers markets, that's just the beginning. There's going to be whole communities that are going to form around this. And once more, as a reminder, here in summer, we're going to have the only in-life personal workshop at transCODES on Iceland in such a community. I want you guys to see this. This is an 80-year-old community that has manifested all these things already, and they're rich. They have lots of money. They have phenomenal facilities. It's so beautiful and healing to see this. But it's possible, and it's not a commune, and it's not something spiritual. No, this is like resource sharing on the highest level with, all new technology integrated. On the relationship level, guys, this, I've mentioned this, it's going to be make it or break it, okay? No more codependency, no more white shadow. There's going to be a disillusionment for some of you in regards to your partner, and disappointments. And you're going to have to work through this, and you have a choice. You can either go into trying to really work this out together. So couple counseling, family counseling can be huge in the next coming years, and say, okay, I commit myself to trying to make this work out. Many of you will feel the need to reconnect. So if you've been in a marriage, in a long relationship, and you've kind of realized that you've developed a part of it, it's a really good year to move back together. And often it just takes a little bit of guidance. So we do this here at transCODES too. You can do couple energy coaching with us. So overall, it will lead to stronger bonds and stronger connection, and a less isolated feeling, because quite frankly, isolation is not a conducive concept in the future. Spiritually, this uncertainty and volatility, guys, which is hard enough for us as these sort of ego human beings, right, will of course trigger these deep fears, the deep fear of the wrath of God or apocalypse or judgment. All this is not going to happen. So scratch that. If you have religious programming, fine. Many of you do, even if you're not going to church. This is a karmic family inheritance, okay? And most of our societies are still pretty much conditioned through religious programming. Don't let these fears dominate you and consume you, whether it's in the practical or in the spiritual. So many people will actually feel the need to liberate themselves spiritually, and the churches are going to lose all their followers, and drones are going to leave the churches. So that will then lead to this, increase of the weirdo spiritual groups and fanatism and fundamentalism, and like going back to like spiritual stuff from like 200 years ago, really weirdo things that I'm seeing there. All that, though, is just a sort of the transition into a more spiritually liberated place that we all are seeking, which is, at the end of the day, the reason why this whole ascension, this whole global awakening is happening. Okay. Personally, I suggest that you guys move into what I call, I don't even know if this is a word or whatever, but practical spiritualism. You don't have to be so spiritual, to be linked into your inner divinity, to have this inner connection. You really just need to be in this present moment awareness and understand that there is a higher power, but not in the way we were taught, that this is determining our lives, which just makes us feel judged and powerless at all times. So, a more spiritual, liberated understanding is, basically the true self-understanding that I've been promoting for years, where you recognize that you have this inner divinity, connection to inner divinity within you through our heart. And Gerald is asking, are we all going to turn into hippies? No way, Jose. That's what I mean with practical spirituality, okay? No. On the contrary, so the hippie movement, was the sort of the first wave of this spiritual libertarism. And it came with a lot of issues, and there was a lot of ego involved, and a lot of, misguided sexual stuff and misguided power stuff, and and the psycho stuff. And no, we are like in the third wave now. This is much more advanced and much more, sophisticated what we can do, okay? Most of you guys that I work with are professionals. You guys are doctors, you're counselors, you're business advisors, you are producers of something, of service providers. You guys are not gonna, turn into hippies, okay? You guys are gonna turn into modern spiritually awoken people, modern empaths. You gonna know what your talents are, what your superpowers are, and you're gonna use them accordingly and not misuse them. So the misuse of our superpowers, of our talents, especially the empathetic ones, is, big part of the shadow work. So shadow work is a good idea for this year. But no, don't worry. No, I strongly recommend not to think of communes or anything, modern hippies. Okay, you could call it that way. Marianne, you've been around all these different cycles and phases. No, we're going to learn the balance between maintaining our own identity and our own lifestyle and our own views while connecting with others, while sharing this with others. Okay, it doesn't have to be mine is better than yours, and just because I like chocolate better doesn't mean that everyone who likes vanilla better is in the other team, okay, or against me. That's the part with duality that we really need to learn to overcome. Okay, and that's what I call the modern, spiritual person, the practical spirituality. Okay, so churches are going to be, not really play that big role anymore. Maybe in some areas where you're going to have some really fanatic kind of churches, so weirdo things. Trust in your inner prompting more than you already been doing, like no more waiting, no more seeking. It's already there, guys. Okay? Trust your own personal gateway to divinity through your heart. Energetically, it means all this. We have to clear more, we have to ground more, we have to center more. We have to become energy managers from the beginning of the day to the end of the day. and really know this is why these mantras, you know, what we ingest, what we allow in, what we surround ourselves with, and what we focus on, you know, what they really mean. You're going to have to become the master of that. You may not be a master in energy work, but you can learn how to create this repertoire, this increased lingo, and you know, a way to expressing yourself and actualizing yourself through yourself. For many, this will mean though to having to learn about energies and chakras and all this. So just so you know, here a shout out today, 5:30 p.m. So that is in roughly 2 hours. We have Instagram Live with basmati.com, another broadcast called Soul Chakra, you know, 7 days, you know, call in live Instagram. I hope I can get this done live on Facebook too, but I'm going to upload this to the YouTube channel. So you guys need to become a bit more flexible with the social media, guys. The discernment that you are learning will also help you to wiggle your way through there. You know, things are, you know, happening on YouTube, they're happening on Twitter, they're happening on Instagram, and they're happening on Facebook. And you don't have to participate in these things, but you have to be aware, you know, of like data security, data safety, and all that kind of stuff. But that's how you will stay at the pulse of things. Okay, it's also another temptation, of course, to get distracted and to check out, but you're going to have to use your discernment. So learn about energies, guys. I mean, you're going to see all these terms pop up: energy psychology, energy medicine, energy astrology. I gave a little excursus on energy astrology yesterday in the Soul Chakra episode number 12. If you're interested, between the connection of energies and astrology and zodiacs, you know, watch episode number 12. It's a really good one. Yes, and this whole, you know, thing with temporal shifts here, you called it temporal anomalies, Cindy. It's, you know, really us realizing that present, past, and future, that they are connected in the now. Okay, and the next segment here is talking about the months and round up this energy forecast by giving you, yeah, quote unquote predictions for the next coming months.